Season 2 of this F1 23 My Team Career Mode is upon us. We've got a brand spanking new car which looks absolutely exquisite in chrome and electric green. And if you guys did miss the pre-season episode, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one to get clued in on also all the admin over the winter break, including some huge driver transfers which involve our own teammate. We've signed Daniel Ricciardo to return him to the Formula 1 grid alongside ourselves. Piastri returned to McLaren alongside Bottas. Lando Norris went to Red Bull. The Mercedes are back in silver now with the reigning 8-time world champion Lewis Hamilton. Scuderia Ferrari retained Leclerc and Carlos Sainz. Aston Martin are now powered by Honda with a returning Alonso alongside Albon. We've got a Gulf Williams livery with Stroll alongside Lawson. The two Frenchmen stay at the French outfit Alpine. Sauber F1 now here with Hulkenberg and Zhou Guanyu. An American rookie, Logan Sargent, alongside Magnussen for the American team. And Sergio Perez down at AlphaTauri with Yuki Tsunoda. But it's a really exciting season for us specifically as well. We're now Spec 2 on the Aero, chassis and personnel HQ facilities, and we've still got a little bit of cash in hand to maybe make some further upgrades. Spec 1 on the marketing, but we've now also altered the activities management to hopefully earn us a little bit more cash, which was a problem for us last season. Durability, we've also started to focus on that a little bit to make sure we reduce those engine failures and also the engine penalties later in the season, and the powertrain is on the way to being Spec 2 as well. But even without any more upgrades, we're starting the season very, very strong. You would have seen all the upgrades we made in the pre-season episode, well, because some of them have come through for the first round down under at the Australian Grand Prix. We are actually starting this season as the second best team on the grid. Red Bull are top with Lando and Max Verstappen. We are second there, just ahead of Aston Martin. Ferrari follow, Haas ahead of Mercedes and McLaren, and Alpine have nosedived towards Williams, Sauber F1 and AlphaTauri. And there's still maybe some R&D work to be done ahead of the first race in terms of purchasing it in time for the second round at Qatar, as we purchase the minor downforce upgrade to match our rear downforce to balance out the car. I think next on the Aero, I'll be looking at the DRS potentially. We're also going to continue to try and improve our engine in terms of the ERS, because I felt like last season, even though now we've got the best engine on the grid once again, the battery does get drained pretty quickly in the race, and that actually kind of negates some of that performance advantage. So looking to delve into the ERS, and on the chassis, I think we've actually done a really great job over the winter with a couple of upgrades there that we're actually not looking too bad now. So all areas of the car have been improved in terms of the aesthetics of the car. That's been improved as well, and hopefully our teammate as well, with Ricciardo returning to this F1 grid as we get into Saturday for qualifying at the Australian Grand Prix. But plenty of exciting new faces in new surroundings. How is Lando Norris going to fare versus Max Verstappen? He's so highly focused after a strong season with McLaren, so now he has the car that can maybe potentially go out and win races. What's going to be of Mercedes? They really nosedive on the R&D chart, but in real terms they could still be pretty good, because Lewis Hamilton's 99 focus, which is incredible for an AI driver. McLaren and Aston Martin, they're both going to be interesting ones. We fought both of those teams last season, but Aston Martin might be up there with us, but McLaren may need a little bit of work. Who knows? It's going to be a very tight grid. Now we've got Sauber F1, unbranded is the Alfa Romeo car as they work towards that Audi takeover in 2026. And then we've maybe got some interesting battles towards the back end of the grid, with now a Gulf Williams car with Lance Stroll at the helm versus maybe Sergio Perez, now demoted down to AlphaTauri. So not just interesting fights maybe at the front, but also towards the back as some drivers look to try and save their careers and salvage something after being booted from their respective teams from season 1. And Ferrari, well, they're a big question mark because they are quite close to us in the R&D chart, but they really didn't pull it together over the course of the season last year. So let's see how they do. But here we are then, the first time driving this new car in anger. And I must say, thankfully, you guys also agreed with the comments below in the pre-season video, but I'm loving the new look at this car. It just looks like a symphony of awesomeness in chrome and electric green. We've got some new sponsors on the car to make it a little bit more realistic and look like an actual real F1 team rather than the pretty standard plain podium pass liveries. And right now the pace out the box looking pretty good there. P2 behind Leclerc ahead of Verstappen. It's early days though, and the track will be getting quicker and quicker as we've got Esteban Ocon out of the session. Purple first sector. Ocon is parked in the middle of this circuit on the racing line. We've crashed into him. Somehow managed to avoid just being out of the session completely. But we've got a 5-place penalty for hitting Ocon, even though he was in the middle of the circuit. And if we're being real there, if that was real life, I feel like there would have been a red flag, or at least, you know, real big double yellow precautions. But for us, we were going quick. We were purple first sector, so I was so focused on getting the good lap in that by the time I seen Ocon, you saw on the replay there on the slow-mo, I turned out, and just because the car was going so quickly, the car just didn't budge quick enough. And so we've got a 5-place penalty for that collision. So not the best way to start the season in terms of wherever we qualify now. We're going to be 5 places back, and I do think we are going to be aiming for a decent top 10 finish. Getting through into Q3, obviously, first and foremost, is the task at hand, but I don't think that'll be a problem. And in Q2, kind of maybe more determined after that crash in Q1, really putting together a really tidy lap there that I was really happy with. The car felt a lot more responsive in Q2 with the track rubbering up, and we're up in P4 there. Ricardo annoyingly just gets knocked out in P11, and ironically our old teammate Piastri, the other Australian that we booted, is up in P9 in the McLaren. So Piastri getting one up on his fellow compatriot, maybe showing me we made the wrong decision early on. But Ricardo, it's his first race, he needs to get his focus up. Compared to all the other AI drivers around him, he's focus 70. You've got some of these guys up to like 95 focus. So I think that does make a massive difference on this year's game in terms of really how much potential they're able to extract from themselves. So I think we need to give Ricardo a couple of races to build up that focus level. So we're going to forget about that. It's just now all about us in Q3 and trying to negate this 5-place penalty. But unfortunately, unlike in Q2, the pace was getting away from me a little bit. We've gone purple in the second sector, green the first. But despite that purple, we're only, you know, just under a 10th up on our actual time there. So everyone's made a lot more time, it would seem, maybe in Sector 1 or Sector 3 potentially, as we're pushing as hard as we can. And I feel like I'm at the maximum limit of where this car is. And all of a sudden, everyone else has found like an extra gear, an extra bit of pace in the top 10 shootout as Lando Norris goes fastest of all. We go across the line, barely improved our lap time, and that's going to be P8 on the road in Q3. And for the first time in the Red Bull, Lando Norris is on pole position, beating Max Verstappen. The reigning champion Hamilton in 3rd place though. Mercedes 3 and 5. All the talk about them nosediving the R&D chart. Maybe Russell and Hamilton as AI, highly focused. They're just able to extract a bit more time than I thought they would in the Mercedes. And the Ferraris also look great. The Aston Martins a little bit slower than I would have thought because Alonso's only P6 and Albon didn't even make it into this session. We beat McLaren and the Haas and Magnussen, but you'd hope we would. But definitely not as quick as I thought we would be looking at the R&D chart, which kind of, you know, just proves you can't really just always go off what that chart says. In reality, the AI, the rating, the focus, just getting the lap together is going to make that difference when it actually matters when we get to these sessions. So for us, it'll be P8 plus 5 positions. So frustratingly, it'll be starting the Australian Grand Prix lower than we did in Season 1's Australian Grand Prix. But it is just what it is. It's the first race weekend of the season. Things are hectic. Things are going to happen. We're just going to have to go with it and hopefully try and make the best of it. And hopefully the race pace comes out a little bit better than the qualifying pace did. Let's go to the grid.
No more testing, no more practice. This is the real deal, and it's make or break here at round 1 of this year's Formula One World Championship. The The Melbourne circuit is certainly one that needs to be taken seriously. It's a combination of slippery surfaces and difficult corners, making it a very tricky track when it comes to overtaking. Drivers find it hard to pass and will need to take full advantage of those DRS zones if they want to have any hope of breaking through. Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. Lando Norris will lead us away from pole position, and Max Verstappen lines up alongside. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Hamilton, Sainz, Russell, Fernando Alonso, Leclerc, Oscar Piastri, Magnussen, Ricciardo, Bottas, Albon, the owner driver, Stroll, Gasly, Hulkenberg, Joe, Sargent, Tsunoda, Perez, Liam Lawson and Esteban Ocon lines up at the back of the grid. It's almost time for those 5 red lights to go out then. Let's see who can prevail today. A new season then, a clean slate where anything could happen. Natalie Pinkham is with me today as we get another year of Formula One underway.
Well, it's clear, very clear conditions, and that makes it clear for the drivers because they don't have to worry and have that added distraction of fickle weather. They can concentrate on the driving and not everything else around them.
So a lot of questions to be answered in this first race of the season. Can the pole sitter Lando Norris really take the fight to Max Verstappen? Are the Mercedes and Ferrari actually that quick in practice? And are Aston Martin actually this slow? Because it's really roles reversed compared to the R&D chart. I really thought Albon and Alonso would be up there in the top 5. Instead, it's the Mercedes cars and the Ferraris who are checkerboarded. And for us, well, Ricciardo got knocked out in P11, but I think there's more to come in the races to come for him. But for us, I thought we could have done better than P8. I was hoping we definitely would have. Instead, we're now here in P13 because of that grid penalty, and we've got some work to do. But nonetheless, it's an exciting time to rev up and get ready for a brand new season. Season 2 is a go here of F1 23, my team career mode, as we go to 5 red lights down under. The Australian Grand Prix is underway, and Bottas has a horrendous getaway. The same for Alonso as well, who backs up Piastri and Daniel Ricciardo as we're up into P8 already. So we've negated our penalty in one straight into turn 1. That's pretty ideal. We're now tucked up on Kevin Magnussen, who's had a really good getaway in the improved Haas. But yeah, woeful getaway for the Flying Finn in the McLaren, and also Fernando Alonso, who's now behind us in P9. Ricciardo gets up to P10, so promising stuff for him in the first few corners. We've got Lando Norris, though, still leading the race then, ahead of Verstappen. He's actually half a second ahead of Max already then, so is he looking to get away? You've then got Sainz, the Mercedes, Leclerc, and then Magnussen, the man I'm directly chasing here with a bit of battery usage. Can we maybe swing round on the inside of him? We're going to commit to the corner. We're side by side through the high-speed chicane. Magnussen gives us no room to work with, but we're still committed over the curb to get the move. We go defensive to make sure we can book this in, and we're going to be up into P7 before it's the end of lap 1. As lap 1s go, being down in P13 at the start, I think that's a pretty solid start. And now we've got a bit of clean air. We've got 1 second of clean air to Leclerc, the Mercedes ahead of him, and Sainz to really see what the actual race pace is like versus these two teams that I thought were going to be behind us in terms of out-and-out pace. But clearly Ferrari and Mercedes are still a threat, and they are teams we need to be fighting to be in the top 3 championship kind of conversation. In the Constructors, the Red Bulls look pretty mighty, I must say. 1 and 2, they may be a bit of a tough challenge this season for anyone to try and crack us on lap 3. Early moves for Ricciardo in this race. Good stuff to see. He started on the soft tyres though, so he has to be looking to make some moves here, and he gets up ahead of Magnussen and is now behind me, 1.8 behind me, but he's ahead. He's basically best of the rest after myself, so pretty good work there for Ricciardo in his first race back in Formula 1 for our team. But we are now making moves on Leclerc as we gain with DRS. It's a DRS train here, but we've got a bit more pace in a straight line, and we go round the outside of the man from Monaco. Easy work, actually, in terms of the overspeed we had into the brake zone. So We may be still lacking some pace at the corners, I think, but one thing's for certain, like a couple of times last season, we've got a very quick car in a straight line. We've got the best engine on the grid once again, and we're putting it to good work. But you can see there are a few little wobbles and struggles in the corners, having to go opposite lock to keep this car going in a straight line to keep up with Russell, as we see Norris and Verstappen side by side. That was on that previous clip. Lap 7, I think Verstappen has maybe got ahead of Norris at this stage here, so the two Red Bull cars immediately are going to have a bit of a teammate battle as we get a good run on Russell. It's going to be so close. Russell gives us just enough room to work with. We nearly dipped a tyre into the grass, but we kept our wits about us, kept our foot down on the left-hand side, and we're up into P5 now. So this progress is really promising. If we keep going like this, as the two Red Bulls are side by side again, Verstappen on the inside, Norris defends, and he's into first place. I think he re-overtook Verstappen, actually that was, because Verstappen was going defensive there. So Lando back into P1 for Red Bull Racing. It looks like we might have a proper fight on our hands this year in the Red Bull camp between Lando and Max, as we have a massive oversteer moment. Very much like last season, we're having some troubles in the last corner as well, if you remember, as we have to pinch Leclerc into turn 1 to maintain the P5. So there is pace in this car, but at the same time, I can still tell we're maybe lacking that out-and-out downforce versus Merc versus Ferraris. We continue to see the two Red Bulls scrap. This time, Norris on the inside. Verstappen goes the long way around to make the overtake round the outside, but Lando keeps his foot and gets the elbow out on the right-hand side of the circuit. It'll turn to the inside for the final corner. Verstappen has a bit of an issue on the front end, and Lando is back up into P1, and Verstappen has lost a lot of pace through the final corner. Sainz may now have a go. The Ferrari is going to try and get up into second place to split the Red Bulls. Lando P1 into turn 1. Verstappen narrowly survives to keep the P2, but he's now bunched us all up as Hamilton is going for maybe a potential move on the Ferrari now. It's all kicking off now, lap 7 to 9 it would seem, and we're back underneath the rear wing of Hamilton, just waiting for the right opportunity to make the move. And I think it might be in Sector 2, like we saw in qualifying. You know, we're clearly the quickest car in Sector 2. Sectors 1 and 3, I think we just don't have the same level of pace in the corners, but this slingshot towards the high-speed chicane, we're very quick. So quick, in fact, that Hamilton was trying to put us on the grass there. Both Mercedes getting very aggressive today, but we're up into P4 as we power pass with ease with DRS and a bit of battery use. So we're into the top 4. I mean, if this was last season, I'd be very happy at this stage, but I want more. I reckon we can have a go at that Ferrari. The two Red Bulls, they're busy squabbling with each other, so maybe there's a chance, but on their own, I think they're a bit too quick for us. But the Ferrari, I think, you know, versus Leclerc, who wasn't being held up by anyone, we had him with ease in Sector 2. So I think if we just play the patient game and wait for that opportunity, we can get Carlos Sainz. But Verstappen, as we focus to the front, looking to still gain on Lando Norris with DRS, but Lando's doing a great job at soaking up the pressure right now in his first race for Red Bull, leading the Australian Grand Prix on lap 10 as Hamilton goes defensive and has Leclerc for some company. The Ferraris are speeding up. I really wasn't sure how good Ferrari were going to be at the start of this season, but it looks like they want it a bit more than Mercedes, who are falling away a little bit in terms of race pace. So maybe that'll be Mercedes' Achilles heel, is they're going to be quick in quali and maybe slow in the race. Who knows? And Aston Martin, they're really not performing how I thought they would, as Alonso's down in P12. Leclerc goes for a move. Hamilton pushes Leclerc off circuit. Both cars nearly go straight on. They lose 2 seconds to the top 4 here. It's all kicking off. Leclerc desperately trying to get ahead of Hamilton, and Hamilton trying to cling on to the top 5. So this race is certainly evolving into a different kind of outlook compared to qualifying. You know, you got the McLarens ahead of the Aston Martin in P10 and 11. Magnussen's still ahead of them. Ricciardo's doing well to be in P8, and now Leclerc has just overtaken Hamilton to get ahead of both both Mercedes cars, so it was looking good in quali, but the Mercedes and Hamilton is maybe lacking pace as Russell now goes and overtakes him to get up into P6. Is this the beginning of the end of Mercedes' race? Because now Ricciardo is within a second of them. I really hope he has a go at them. That would be awesome to see if Rick Bobby in his first race for our team can have a go at Merc. So yeah, it did look a bit worrying in quali, I can't lie, but in race pace terms, yeah, we've got way more pace than versus over one lap. As now you've got Verstappen going for another move on Norris. They made contact though. Verstappen too late on the brakes, and he definitely made some contact with Lando Norris's side pod. They come out unscathed. Lando in P1, Verstappen P2, and these guys are fighting so much now that I reckon let's pit now. 1 lap early. My scheduled pit stop was lap 13, but looking at that fighting going on, if we pit now, I reckon we have a good chance to undercut, dare I say, all 3 of them, Lando, Max and Carlos, because, well, the 2 Red Bulls are fighting so much, they're just going to slow up Sainz, even if he has a bit more pace in the tank, as we have a small issue, though, on the front right, so that's going to slow up our pit stop time by 2 seconds, unfortunately. Ricciardo double stacks with me. That's unfortunate. I didn't know he was going to come in annoyingly. Again, really, really lacking some sort of command in my team to tell your teammate to not come in on a certain lap annoyingly, but we move back to focusing on this top fight because I think these guys are going to push each other so much. You know, they're in each other's turbulent, dirty air that I think we could get an undercut on all 3 of them if we're lucky. Verstappen is literally pushing Lando through this high-speed chicane. The Dutchman wants the P1. Is the Brit going to defend to the inside? He will. Verstappen pulls out to the outside. The 2 of them will be side by side for what seems like the 6th or 7th time at this part of the circuit. They're going to be side by side through this entire section, and this is going to slow them up so much. They've already lost half a second alone in these sequence of corners, and they're going to continue to be side by side. Norris gets the elbow out to keep P1 onto lap 14, but they're going on for another lap, so we're going to get 2 laps of an undercut, and they're going to fight into turn 1, and Verstappen is going to get into first place. Is he? No! How has Lando done that? He's pulled it off. He's up into P1 again, but this is what I'm on about. We can get the undercut on the... No! Oh, no. Come on! We were just talking about the undercut. Oh, the engine's gone. The engine's gone. Of course it's gone. Of course it went. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Every time with the F1 game, man. When we're on to go for P1, the engine blows up. Bloody hell. First race of the season is going to end as a DNF. Wow. Damn it. I really hope that is not a bad omen for the season to come. That is so annoying. I think you guys clearly saw what was happening in front of you. We were going to get P1, I think, at that rate. And annoyingly, our race ends early.
Another superb Australian Grand Prix comes to an end then, and it's a thoroughly deserved victory. Natalie Pinkham, how do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
Well, confidence breeds confidence. Success breeds success. They are very much enjoying a purple patch right now.
Red Bull put up an outstanding fight for the front position today, and it's great to see it paid off for them. They do so much for the sports that you can't help but be delighted by today's race win.
And in the end, the inevitable man wins the race. Max Verstappen wins it. It's a 1-2 for Red Bull. Lando Norris P2 in his first race for Red Bull. I really thought Lando would have had it. And to be honest, if it wasn't for the simulated rest of the race, I reckon in real terms, Lando's AI had that one, in my opinion. But the simulations made Max Verstappen win that one. Lando P2. Sainz in third for a very strong start to the season for him and Ferrari. I really wrote him and Mercedes off, but Mercedes actually did get written off in that race. You know, Hamilton finished down in P7, Russell P6. Alonso, remember Alonso? He was P12 at one point in the first stint. He somehow, later in that race, caught up 6 positions and vaulted all of them up to P5. Bottas up to P8. Ricciardo got a point on the board at least, so he finished ahead of his fellow compatriot Piastri and gets our team 1 point to start the season. So it's not a total disaster. We got 1 point, guys, 1 point. But yeah, a DNF in our first race, really not ideal, and already got some catching up to do to not even the top 3, just the even 4th and 5th of Aston and McLaren and Haas as well. But that's how it is sometimes with Formula 1. It's a very cruel sport. It's unforgiving, and for us today, it is very much that. But it's still been a pretty exciting first episode of the season. I think there are a lot of little hints of what's to come in terms of some of the great battles we might have with this car. If you guys did enjoy it, then be sure to hit the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.